You're not as smart as you think you are. Hell, none of us are. But let's make one thing clear. It's not your fault. You've been lied to. Raised in a system that rewards loud opinions, not clear thinking. A world where clout matters more than truth. And while you're out here scrolling, reacting, nodding, judging, you don't even realize you're being played by your own damn brain. Yeah, that lump of meat in your skull? It's been running your life like a drunk pilot on autopilot. Fast, loud, and absolutely convinced it knows where it's going. Spoiler, it doesn't. Because real intelligence isn't what school drilled into you. It's not grades, not IQ, not how fast you can solve a math problem. It's the one skill nobody talks about, learning how to think against yourself. Let that slap you for a second. See, we live in an era that praises opinions but fears reflection. Everyone's screaming, no one's listening. Everyone thinks they're right, but nobody knows why they think what they think. And that's where the trap begins. It's called cognitive bias, and it's the invisible hand manipulating your every move. Your logic, your choices, your relationships. You think you're making decisions? Nah, you're reacting to scripts you've never read, coded by fear, comfort, and shortcuts. You scroll past a tragedy on your feed. You feel a twitch, a little sadness, maybe guilt. Then you move on like it never happened. But if that same thing happened in your neighborhood, you'd spiral. That's proximity bias. Your empathy is blind, filtered by distance. And that's just the tip of it. You ever been in an argument and you just knew you were right? Like, no doubt in your mind. But later, hours later, maybe years, you realized you were dead wrong? That's confirmation bias. It filters your facts before you even get to see them. And here's the punchline. You don't notice it. None of us do, until it's already cost us something. A relationship, a job, a shot you didn't take, a mistake you defended. Because the brain doesn't want truth. It wants comfort, certainty, safety. That's how humans survive the jungle. Not by being right, but by being quick. React fast or get eaten. But guess what? We're not running from tigers anymore. We're running from our own shadows. From the fear of being wrong. From uncomfortable truths. And it's killing your edge. Want to outsmart 90% of people? Here's the brutal secret. You don't need more knowledge. You need less ego. The dumbest smart people on earth are the ones too proud to question themselves. So, here's your upgrade. Second-order thinking. Not flashy, not sexy, but deadly effective. It's simple. When most people say, screw it, I'll skip the gym today, they stop there. First-order thinking. But second-order thinking asks, what happens next? Not just now. What happens next, and then after that, and then again? If I repeat this choice 10 more times. That's how winners think. Not like machines, like strategists. You play it forward like a damn chess master. Every move, every cost. Because let's be honest, skipping one workout doesn't ruin your life. But repeating that excuse 12 times in a row, that's where the decay starts. Momentum dies. Discipline dies. Self-respect bleeds out in silence. That's how habits break you. Not with one swing, but 1,000 paper cuts. But you won't see it coming, unless you zoom out. So the next time your brain says, I'll just check my phone for a sec, pause. Ask yourself, what's the cost of this comfort? You think you're relaxing. You're rewiring, turning focus into mush. And you wonder why your brain feels like a browser with 50 tabs open, none of them loading. You're not burned out. You're mentally bloated. Bloated with unchallenged thoughts, recycled opinions, and dopamine hits from garbage content that teaches you nothing but how to keep scrolling. You want clarity? Then suffer a little. Think deeper than your first impulse. Argue against your own beliefs. That's right, flip your own logic on its head. See if it still stands. Sounds painful? It is. That's why 90% of people never do it. But that's also why you can win, because discipline in thinking is rare. And rare is valuable. Your brain is lazy by default. That's not an insult. That's biology. Thinking costs calories. Literally. So it cheats. It cuts corners. But every time you force it to work harder, to challenge, reframe, dig, you're training it. Like a muscle. Think of every assumption you've never questioned as a weight you've never lifted. You want a strong mind? Lift the heavy SH*T. Here's a test. Think about a belief you hold strongly. Maybe political, maybe personal. Now, ask yourself, what if the opposite were true? Not just hypothetically. Seriously argue it. Defend it. Find data. Walk in the enemy's shoes. If you can't do that, you're not thinking. You're just echoing. and echoes don't build legacies. Look, the game isn't about being smarter. It's about being clearer. And clarity is expensive. It costs your comfort, your pride, your blind spots. But once you've paid that price, something happens. You stop being reactive. You stop panicking. You stop falling for the same psychological traps everyone else drowns in. You become dangerous, not because you're loud, but because you're calm in chaos. Because you see 5 moves ahead when they're still blinking at the board. Let's talk about why this matters, not in theory, but in life. Every day, you're making decisions that quietly shape your future. Tiny ones, barely noticeable. What you eat, what you scroll, who you follow, what you believe without checking twice. And each one is either sharpening your edge or dulling it into mediocrity. You don't need to get every choice right, but you do need to get conscious. Because unconscious thinking is the real enemy here, not stupidity, not laziness, but mental sleepwalking. Let me say that again. The average person isn't stupid, they're asleep. They walk around in loops, doing what feels normal, saying what everyone else says, nodding to the loudest voice in the room. They don't stop to ask, wait, what if I'm wrong? Because that kind of honesty takes guts. And we've raised a world that worships comfort over clarity. But here's the cheat code. Discomfort equals intelligence. You want to rise? You want to separate from the pack? Then get uncomfortable with your own thoughts. Challenge yourself like a rival. Audit your own mind. Imagine this. What if every time you felt certain, 100% convinced, you had a little alarm in your head that went off? Warning, you're about to fall into a bias. That voice would save your damn life. Because certainty is dangerous. It kills curiosity. It ends growth. And it keeps people stuck in loops for decades. Want proof? Look around. People spend years defending the same belief system that's making them miserable. Why? Because it's familiar, predictable, and bias loves predictability. It wraps around your brain like a warm blanket while it robs you blind. But you're here. You're still listening. That means some part of you is ready to snap the hell out of it. So here's a mental weapon for your toolkit. The opposite rule. Whenever you think you're sure, test the reverse. I need to quit this job. Okay, what if you stayed and built something they couldn't ignore? She doesn't love me. All right, what if she does, but you've been too checked out to see it? I suck at this. What if you don't, and you're just afraid of the climb? See, your brain doesn't hate you. It just doesn't know the difference between fear and truth. So when fear shows up first, it wins unless you learn to override it. Train your mind like a muscle. With reps, with resistance. You pause. You push back. You ask better questions. And don't expect applause for this. No one sees it. No one claps for internal victories. That's why it's so rare. That's why it works. Now let's talk social. You want to outsmart 90% of people? Learn to think in a room full of noise. Because modern life is a mental battlefield. Every scroll is an opinion. Every click, a persuasion attempt. Everyone's yelling what you should care about, what side to pick, what's right. But here's the truth. Most people don't want truth. They want validation. They're not looking for what's real. They're looking for what feels familiar, comfortable, aligned with their identity, even if it's false. So when you question that, you scare them. That's why thinking clearly is lonely. You stop being relatable. You stop getting invited into groupthink. But screw it, you weren't born to blend in. You were built to build something different. You don't need to be the smartest in the room. You need to be the most aware. The one who sees the bias playing out in real time and refuses to dance with it. Let them talk. Let them react. Let them spiral in emotional tantrums and hot takes. You stay calm. You ask better questions. You play the long game. You win. And the win isn't loud. It doesn't come with fireworks or trophies. It's silent. It's private. It's in the way you walk out of a meeting with clarity while everyone else is confused. It's in the way you say no to things that drain you. It's in the way you don't need to prove anything to anyone because you already dissected your own mind, burned through the lies, and came out clear. That's what outsmarting looks like in 2025. It's not about knowing more. It's about thinking better. But let me hit you with something colder. If you don't train this muscle, you're not just standing still. You're falling behind. Because the world is accelerating. Algorithms are getting smarter than your instincts. Manipulation is now a billion-dollar game. And if you're not playing offense with your brain, you're prey. Simple. So what's your move? You could keep scrolling, chasing the next hit of dopamine, the next viral take, the next mental fast food. Or you could pause, right now, this second, and do something radical. Start thinking, for real, not just reacting, not just feeling, but thinking. Pick a belief you've never questioned. Pick an opinion you inherited from your parents, or your school, or TikTok, or your favorite podcast. Now tear it apart, not to destroy it, but to rebuild it with truth. That's what real intelligence is. Not echoing, not mimicking, but rebuilding your mind from the inside out. Because once you master that, nobody can touch you. Not their opinions, not their guilt trips, not their panic, not even your old self. You become dangerous, not because you know everything, but because you know how to navigate through the fog when everyone else is frozen. Mental clarity is power. And in a world where confusion is currency, clarity is rebellion. You want to know the real reason most people lose? It's not because they're stupid. It's because they never question their own programming. They inherit beliefs like hand-me-down clothes. They repeat words that were never theirs. They follow blueprints they never drew. And worst of all, they never stop long enough to ask one terrifying question. What if I've been wrong this entire time? That question is nuclear. That question shakes your identity. That question ruins fake confidence, destroys shallow certainty, and burns illusions to ash. And that's why no one asks it. But you must. Because everything you hate about your life, the stress, the confusion, the stuckness, it's not random. It's not fate. It's not bad luck. It's unchallenged thinking. It's playing mental checkers in a world that demands chess. So here's your moment of truth. Do you want to keep playing the same mental loops? Keep obeying old scripts? Keep chasing someone else's definition of smart, successful, right? Or do you want to build a mind that actually belongs to you? One that cuts through noise like a blade. One that doesn't flinch in uncertainty. One that doesn't need permission to act, think, speak, or walk the hell away. That mind doesn't come from watching more content. It doesn't come from following more gurus. It comes from one simple discipline: the pause. You pause before you speak. You pause before you judge. You pause before you choose comfort over clarity. You pause, and in that space, you think. You test the thought. You question the feeling. You play the tape forward. You lift the mental weight. You wrestle the truth until it either breaks you or rebuilds you. That's how you become someone different. Not just smarter, but sharper. Not just more informed, but unstoppable. Because once you master your mind, once you become immune to manipulation, immune to cheap emotions, immune to your own bias, you're not just part of the 10% anymore. You become something rarer. You become unshakable. And that's what the world can't handle. A person who doesn't just react, but responds with ruthless clarity. A person who no longer flinches. So here's your last test, and this one's real. What do you do now? Because I already know what 90% of people will do. They'll smile, nod, maybe even feel inspired, and then scroll to the next distraction. But the 10%? They'll stop. They'll shut this video, and they'll make a single, concrete move. Not a perfect one, not a huge one, but a real one. They'll sit down with a notebook and ask, what belief have I never questioned? What emotion keeps steering me wrong? What shortcut am I addicted to? What discomfort am I avoiding? And then they'll do the thing they've been avoiding for months. They'll make the call. They'll delete the app. They'll tell the truth. They'll get brutally honest about how much their own brain has been the enemy and how it ends today. You want to outsmart 90% of people? Here's the answer. Question everything, especially yourself. Train your mind like a weapon. Refuse to settle for reactive, lazy thoughts. And act with the kind of clarity that makes everyone else feel like they're still stuck on loading. You don't need to be more talented. You don't need more time. You just need to start thinking better. And thinking better starts now. So what's it gonna be? Another scroll? Or the start of a whole new mind? Your move.